Hi everyone, welcome to episode 317. This is the AI-powered smart salesperson cheat sheet to using HubSpot. Now, back in February 2022, we covered in episode 271 the lazy person's cheat sheet to using HubSpot. And a lot has changed since then. So in this episode, we're going to talk through some of the new things that have come with sales workspaces, AI-powered prospecting agents, and all of the new tools that are inside HubSpot. So we're just going to have a little reflection, and then we're going to talk about what has changed and how you should be utilizing it in your business today. Well, Craig, let's start with our growth thought of the week. Now, I think one of the things that was highlighted to both of us is that back in 2022, it was more about discipline when we were talking about sales. It's about, making sure you're following things up, making sure you're making those calls. And now it's kind of, I would probably say it's still a bit of a discipline, but it's also more delegation to the tools and the AI that we have. So I think really what I want to highlight to people that lazy means being smart with AI now. And some of the things that you need to be aware of is that you need to actually take that laziness and transform it into being smart and curious. I think that's the really big thing, Craig. And then I think utilizing the tools that you have at your disposal. Now, in saying that, I don't think that all of the things are actually working 100%. And I think this is where you need to have really good intuition to test, measure, and verify what's going on. So through this episode, we'll give you some pro tips. We'll give you some tips that we have discovered as we worked with different businesses and what to look out for. Never relinquish all of your control to the system. I think you need to have a human in the loop still. And I think that's one of the key things here.
I totally agree, Ian. And I think you're right to highlight the difference between lazy and smart. I still think, some of the smartest teams that we work with, they are lazy in a sense. I don't know, because you and I both did software engineering back in the day, and there was this kind of meme around at the time, which was like the lazy programmer.
Yes.
And what it actually meant was they were really smart with how they used their time. They used tools to help them to be super productive. As you said, AI is hit and miss. There's so much AI slop in lots of tools, but there's some really good tools, which we're going to go through. But there's a growing divide between sales teams. So when we look at the sales teams we're working with, we've got the beginners that are still struggling with the basics. And this is not a criticism, it's an observation, because they're often dealing with lots of tools. Big companies have a massive tech stack these days, and sales reps are, like everyone else, struggling under the overwhelm of so many different platforms that they have to use. And so HubSpot often is just one of the platforms. And they aren't up to speed, they haven't got proper training, they're not embracing it. And so they're just at that beginner mode. And so when we think about lazy in that regard, they're just trying to avoid doing work, Oh, I don't want to log my calls. Oh, I don't want to log my emails. And it's actually really counterproductive. And then on the other side of the divide, this growing divide, you've got these advanced sales teams. They also have many platforms, but they are embracing the tools. Like you said, they're keen to learn. They've ended up with optimized processes. They've put the time into optimizing them. Everything is logged because, as we'll talk about, AI is kind of practically useless if it's not trained. There's no data underlying that they can use. They're using things like HubSpot calling. They're using AI right, left, and center, but in a very smart, focused way. And so lazy for them means focused on smart activities, avoiding the busy work. And so the difference between these, and this is why I call it the great divide or growing divide, is it's orders of magnitude. And we're seeing this. We're seeing the really smart, advanced sales teams just become more and more productive, and the beginners are left behind. So as you said, those kind of green flags of advanced teams, that willingness to embrace new tools, which is a discipline, Ian, to actually sit there and go, oh, I'm going to look at this. Is this beta new? No, that's okay. That was a waste of time. I'm going to look at this one. Wow, this is great. It unlocks the stuff. They're constantly learning. They're often getting training. We often do training with these sales teams. They're like, show me something new. What do I need to do? Yes. And the other thing, I think this is a big thing. They're very collaborative.
Yes.
And I'm shocked when we're working with some sales teams. They're like, "Oh, I don't want the other reps to see the emails that I'm logging. Can we change permissions? I don't want." I'm like, what, is that your biggest problem? Why are you focused on that? I'm very private. I keep my relationships private. I don't want the other reps seeing what I'm talking about. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I don't see that often in advanced teams. Now, there is a time and place for keeping email conversations private, especially if they're sensitive, medical or something like that, financial details, sure. But in most advanced sales teams, we don't see that because they have a very collaborative team attitude and they're always training others. Hey, check out how I did this. Check that email that I sent. I used AI to do that. Oh, avoid this one. I used AI here. It was a disaster. Don't fall into this trap. We're seeing a lot of that, and those are the advanced teams. They're the green flags of advanced teams. And so what we're going to cover today, I think, Ian, and you've laid out most of today's show notes beautifully, is how those tools can be used to unlock that productivity in teams. So let's jump in. You had some notes here around just looking at, as you said, back from February 2022, which seems so long ago, Ian, and the things that have changed. So yeah, let's walk through what are some of the quick shots from, inbound last year as a starting point.
That's right. So let's look at some of the ones from inbound last year in San Francisco, Craig. We have Data Hub, which used to be Operations Hub rebranded. And I think one of the big changes in Data Hub is Data Studio and the ability to connect to external data sources and use it as a bit of a playground and use the AI on top of that to do enrichment and data quality, deduplication. I think that was one of the most exciting things in Data Hub that we have been talking to customers and using. You've got Breeze Studio and Marketplace. Again, I think these are all evolving. So all of the AI agents, and you can install them from the Marketplace. There are lots in beta, and generally when they're in beta, they don't get charged credits, but then that does come a time when they do get charged. So just be aware of that, and we'll touch more on that in this episode. The Loop Playbook, that was all new. And we covered this back in episode 314 about the new AI era of marketing framework, replacing the traditional funnel and the four stages in that. So, which is actually quite interesting, Craig. I'm just trying to think, are people still talking about it? Are they not? But we'll come back to that discussion a little later. We've got all of the agents that are constantly growing. One of the ones that we love is the data agent that does customer research. The customer agent, that's one of my favorites for frontline support and sales. And it's just amazing how good it's becoming today. The prospecting agent is another one that is very valid for this episode. Craig, what about the next few?
Well, the leads object, if you'd asked me a year ago, should we be using the leads object in HubSpot? I was very wary, but now they've really fleshed that out. It is very mature now, so we do recommend that. And what's the difference? It's basically it's almost like a pre-deal or a mini deal. So you're not really ready to create a deal against a contact or a company, so a lead is the way to do it. So definitely something for the smart salesperson to be thinking about. Now, Commerce Hub, they have rolled that out. I'm in two minds around Commerce Hub, I have to say, just in terms of the value you get for the price, but I am starting to kind of feel it's foundational. So you kind of get the new Commerce Hub in place, you're getting the quoting going, and then a whole lot of AI stuff's going to roll out. So I think it's a bit of a hard sell right at the moment, but I can see where that's going. And this is the kind of thing that in a year's time, I'll be saying, yeah, got to be getting it. Got HubSpot for Sheets, which I haven't actually used, but I guess that's, you've touched on it, I think, haven't you, Ian?
Yeah, so I actually tried this out, Craig, when they first released it, and I haven't played with it thereafter, but I can see the usefulness of it, especially if you're using Google Sheets. And it's a little add-in that you can add. So if you run your Google Workspace, you can do it on a organization-wide level, or you can do it on an individual. But just gives you, when you're in Google Sheets, the ability to access HubSpot and to check data that's in your HubSpot against that sheet.
Nice.
And the next one is HubSpot Credits in Sales Hub. So a lot of these AI features consume credits. And so just be aware, if you are on a pro tier, you will generally have 3,000 credits. And if you're on an enterprise tier, you'll get 5,000. Now, if you have the suite of products, those limits are increased. But that's a good starting point just to understand. And we have customers currently that are not on the new billing system. And so they generally have to buy credits. Like you and me, Craig, we both bought credits to utilize. And then when we get switched over, we will have additional credits to work with. So
we're not really
I
going to
think,
talk
like,
about credits much today, but I think we could probably do a whole episode in the future about credits and managing it and the value. I think the ROI on credits, because some people push back, oh, they're charging me another way. Yep, they are. I actually think this is the future, and we'll touch again on this later when we chat about prospecting agent.
Yeah. So they're just some of the things from inbound in 25. Now there are lots of new things that are rolling out on a monthly basis, and some of the things that are rolled out this year, some of them being smart deal progression. So how the smart data capture is happening and turning conversation insights into CRM updates and follow-up actions, which I've seen. You've probably seen some screenshots. I've got some of those in our CRM. We've got email-based workflow triggers. So you can trigger workflows of a one-on-one email being sent or received in your CRM. And that's kind of cool. So
this is really interesting. You were showing me this earlier because I hadn't actually put this in place. But yeah, essentially trigger a workflow based on an email coming in. So someone might have replied or might have sent an email, and you can trigger based on emails just to one person, or a subject contains a particular word, or
the direction of the email.
Yeah. So I am very interested in using this as part of sales processes. So this is almost like the takeaway from this episode I'm going to investigate afterwards, Ian. So thanks for bringing that to my attention.
So we've got that. I think a really good example of that potentially to use, Craig, is when emails get sent and you might tell people, reply with this key phrase or reply and say, yes, you're interested. You could potentially, based off that, whatever comes back in that email, is trigger off a sequence of that without having somebody involved in actually manually doing it. Or maybe you say, do you want to get unsubscribed? Do you not want to hear from us? Just reply and let me know that I want to unsubscribe, and then you could take them out of the marketing subscription as well.
Yeah, well, as we think about it, and I'm only starting to think about it, but I'm just thinking of subject line pieces. And even as a sales rep, you could send an email to someone, include something in the subject line.
Yes.
The workflow picks that up, might create them as a lead, could trigger all kinds of things. So
yes,
I'll think about that one. I
Possibilities are endless, Craig. The next one is predictive segment engagement, where AI predicts how segments will engage with emails before you send them. And this is more to do with marketing. Now, why I included this is that we tend to send a lot of marketing emails from the contact owners, which are salespeople, right? Because that's where the relationship is. And I think this is a really good indicator of using AI to see what the engagement will be based on past activity. And so I think this is really good because I feel, and I don't know whether you've seen this, Craig, more and more we're having lower engagement with email, and people are ending up in the disengaged bucket. So more and more we're trying to get better with segmentation, get better with messaging, get better with how we communicate, right? And I feel like this is one of those things that kind of will add to making all of that a bit better and understanding the different segments that we have. So I think if anything I could say today, I feel segmentation is becoming far more important today than it ever was in the history of us talking about this within HubSpot. Would you agree?
I'm in two minds because on one hand, I think you should always try and be as targeted as possible. But on the other hand, I'm like, well, when we talk about prospecting agent, often if you're going out cold or warm, it's just like you're just blasting it out. And I understand when people say, oh, these prospecting agent emails are just spam, right? So on one hand, we've got AI allowing us to create that spammy outreach email at scale. And then on the other, we've got, we should be a bit more segmented in how we approach it. So I think there's a balance there, Ian, and often that balance depends on the type of business that we're working with and kind of their risk profile in terms of, being labeled spammers and things like that. versus how tight they want to be in the relationships they're cultivating.
And then finally, we'll just talk about goal progression reporting. So we've got some new visualization styles and easier dashboard integrations. I think reporting has been changing recently quite a bit, and how reports get updated, the way they operate. And it's been encouraging to see that. And I think always getting better every day, which is really good. So I think if you actually, my tip is if you haven't been back and looked at some of your reports, go and look at some of the new style of reports that are available and utilize some of that in your reporting just to give a bit of a fresh update to it. All right. And in terms of pricing and licensing, finally, seat-based pricing across everything. So everything's moving to seat-based. Now, Craig very aptly mentioned, because I put since March 24, that's when everything kind of moved to seat-based pricing. Previously, everybody who was using the sales tools needed a seat, but you had to buy like 5 seats and then additional seats. Or if you were buying enterprise, you had to buy 10 seats. Now you can buy 1 seat and then add on seats. So
it was basically per seat pricing came in,
correct,
not per 10 bundles and things like that, which was great.
Yeah.
I think that was a good move.
Exactly. But I think in the process, Craig, you've got these core seats, which have added access to the system, and view-only seats, right? And so all of us who've been legacy, who've had lots of core seats of people that did stuff, have now had to transition or then budget for that. So I think just be aware of that as you're doing this, because you're not just going to get seats just because you had them before as the transition happens.
Yeah, look, this is not an episode around licensing and the seats, but I don't know if that was the best move. Purely, look, I understand it from a revenue value capture move, but it's made conversations confusing. We often get bogged down talking about, so what's this seat do? And I'm buying a sales seat. Is that a core seat or what? And people get confused. So I think in the interest of making this a useful comment, I really feel you've got to work closely with either your HubSpot growth specialist or whoever you're talking with, customer success manager, or with us or your partner to really make sure that the seat mix is appropriate and optimized for your business.
Yep. And then we mentioned before, we've got Commerce Hub seats now, and this is required to use the new quote creation tool, which is within that. Now, if you were a legacy user of quotes, which have been sunset after September 25, you will continue to keep access. But obviously, if you're a legacy user, there's some of the things to be aware of with all of this. All right, let's hop onto the sales workspace, Craig.
All right. Well, this is a great place to start, isn't it? Yeah, what would you say is the first tip for any sales team?
This should be your home screen. And it's your command center. What I love about it, it's kind of brought everything together from, if you've got your calendar connected, you've got, what I love about it when I show this to teams is that you have everything in one place, but the AI and the machine learning runs and gives you the guided actions, which are actually really useful. So it says, maybe you should follow this up. Maybe you've missed following up this contact or this lead. It actually gives you some assistance and some things that you need to action, which you may have just totally forgotten about. So some of it is deal related and some of it's prospecting related. And it's one of the things I often go to first to have a look at what's going on.
Yeah, I think I try to explain to people that workspace, the word workspace generally means my stuff.
Yes.
So sales reps go, how do I just see my things? Go to the workspace. And so that's often a quick way to help them out.
I think they've done a great job of highlighting everything that people need, because I remember people complaining to me like, I want to see my calendar because I want to see what I'm doing. And you always had to go to a separate place. And this is just really nicely brought everything together in a smart place to make it happen.
It does jump around a little bit. I think they've made it consistent now, but there used to be a separate tab for leads, I think. And then
there was.
Then it came under prospects, and then they did so. But I think it's settled down now. Yeah.
And I think what I love about this, Craig, is that they're constantly getting feedback and improving. So they're not just saying, here it is. And I feel people, if they've got feedback, they should be giving it. You see those little pop-ups appear all over through the system. Don't ignore them. Like if you've got something to say, I'd actually say something. because that's how we make it better, right? And this is for anyone that you deal with. Like if you can help them be better, makes everything better. So some of the key things I want to highlight in here that I love seeing, and I'm not going to go over everything. It's obviously the predictive deal score. I've been really enjoying that, and then hovering over that and seeing why the score changed. That's one of the big, as people in sales that I've highlighted to, they've gone, oh, okay, that makes sense, or I can see why that's gone down. So that's been really interesting.
I just want to comment on this. And this is, again, the difference between beginner sales teams and advanced sales teams. Because that predictive score, in fact, anything predictive, is based on activity being logged.
Correct.
And data about that. So if you're in a beginner sales team and you're still struggling to log your activity and get data consistently into HubSpot, these kinds of tools like predictive scores and other AI stuff is actually going to be counterproductive in many cases. It'll be a bad score, inaccurate score. So this again is why you've got to get the foundations in place. You've got to be logging everything. You've got to make sure it's all set up properly. Then it unlocks these kind of tools, which are really good.
That is a very good highlight there, Craig. And I think when we started, a lot of these things, HubSpot didn't have enough data, right? And so they'd anonymize things and then the AI would run and they'd make predictions based off that about a larger set of data. But I think now it's really about your own data and having that in place. I'm sure there's still things that run across the system that is anonymized that helps better understand maybe particular types of customer groups, people, industries, and that's probably happening. But really it's your data. And I think that's the key thing that we need to remember here is the better the data, the better the insights.
Yeah, and I'll just make a comment from the side here because in our portal, I have a number of brands, a number of companies, and they're all in one portal. And that is actually starting to work against us now because a lot of the insights are they're just spread across different brands that service different customer types.
Yeah.
And so, for example, you use something like the ICP agent or, tell me my ideal customer, it just goes completely wrong. And then give me guidance on deals and how they're working. And you've got to be very specific, just this deal pipeline. It'll look across all your contacts and use deals and just come up with, just noise, just rubbish, right? And so it comes back to your point, which is you've got to get your data right. And I'm now like, should I actually be moving some of my brands out into separate portals? Purely because the AI is so badly offset by it. And the reason I raise it now is because we have a number of clients that have multiple brands in their portals. And this whole idea of, we've got business units and all this kind of thing. I'm like, I wonder, that was great. Having consolidated portal was a strategic move a couple of years ago. But I'm wondering now how they're going to manage to separate them or keep them separate for a lot of these AI insights that are coming out. And I think it's going to be a hard problem. We'll, wait and see, I guess. But just something for people to be thinking about, especially if you haven't yet put multiple brands in your portal, you might want to keep them separate just with that in mind.
Very good. All right. So the pro tip here, make sure your sales teams make the sales workspace their first place that they go to in HubSpot. All right. The next thing we want to talk about is prospecting agent. And we kind of had this as the AI-powered lazy salesperson's best friend. I think we should call it the AI-powered smart salesperson's best friend. And this is the big unlock, right? Because the prospecting agent essentially is an AI-powered business development rep that works for you 24/7. And actually, to be honest, Craig, I have been, and this is not really on the prospecting agent, but if I look at customer agent and I see conversations that are happening, there are sales conversations happening on prospecting agent, even at hours of the night that I would not even think that people would be doing
customer
stuff.
Agent, you mean?
Yes,
there are
in the customer
conversations
agent,
on customer
right?
agent, yeah.
Correct. And I think this is where like the use of all of these different tools together should be amplifying your results or amplifying your efforts in here. So tell everyone what it does and why it's important, Craig.
Okay, so prospecting agent, by the way, just let me say customer agent. I totally agree. We're not covering customer agent in this episode, but we did in our previous episode, our AI focused one. Customer agent, I think, is probably one of the best AI tools they rolled out within HubSpot. over the past year. It's really good. It's really good. Well, now it's really good. I don't know at the start. I think it was hit and miss. And also Prospecting Agent for that matter. When I first started testing months ago or even a year ago, it was a while ago, it was pretty bad or it was pretty hit and miss. It's really good now. So Prospecting Agent, we're going to do a whole episode on Prospecting Agent in the future, how to set it up, kind of get into the technical details. Today, we're just going to talk high level kind of about it and not into how to specifically set it up. But I do want to make some overall comments, which is I think Prospecting Agent is just the tip of it. They should have called it Engagement Agent, Ian, because this is not just for sales reps. Today, we're going to talk with the sales rep use case in mind, but this is a tool where you create profiles of what you want to talk about. They talk about prospecting, often in a cold outreach scenario, which is just one of many that it could be. And it uses AI to create the emails that sales reps normally would be using if they're doing that cold outreach. But I think the opportunities for Prospecting Agent are so much broader. They're across other departments. It should be just be called Engagement Agent. You could be talking with customers, for example, and doing, Prospecting Agent emails to them, but they're not really. They're cross-sell or they're just relationship and engagement emails. But that's all for a future episode because that's I think, a big opportunity for where this is going. But Prospecting Agent, what is it? It's a way where you create a profile. For example, going to talk about a product we have or maybe just making contact, but you could be talking about an upcoming webinar, for example. You create these profiles. And in each profile, you fill it out with who it's targeted for, kind of the call to action that you're going to have. And then from there, it's almost like using sequences, the experience of sequences. You're going to enroll people, contacts, into Prospecting Agent and assume that you're going to enroll them manually. I know down the track they're looking at automatically putting people in based on all kinds of things. Just don't worry about that for the moment. You enroll them. And whereas previously, say with sequences, you might say, hey, I'm going to enroll them. They're going to get this sequence of emails that I might tailor individually. Here, it's AI is writing it. And obviously, the more data you have for a contact, the better the AI is going to be. And when I said it was hit and miss a year or so ago, it's because it didn't have any extra research it was doing on the side. It was purely just based on existing information against a contact. But now it has its agent go out, it might research the company, might look at websites and all kinds of other things, might look at intent signals, a whole bunch of inputs. And it uses AI to write those emails. And it can automatically send them. I think you and I are both very wary of allowing that at this stage, but in the future we might have confidence. But can send them. And then it actually updates based on replies they get or further actions. It's actually pretty good. When I've been training clients recently on this, I've been setting their expectations at a mid-level because I don't want them to get too excited. But I've been pleasantly surprised when we do examples and I say, here we go, let's try a few, let's create them. What do you think of these emails that the AI has written? And they're like, that's really good. And so my experience has been lately, it's writing really good emails. What's your experience been lately, Ian, with Prospecting Agent?
I would have to say similar to yours, Craig. It has just become better over time. And I'll give you an example. There was one we were testing with a customer of ours. The agent had gone and found out that this particular person was running an event and when the event was. And it had personalized it down to asking about how the event was, what they had done for the event, and how this business could support that event potentially. And I was like, oh, I didn't even heard of the event. And so that made me go, and we went and researched and go, oh, that event's coming up. I think it was coming up, yeah. But this person had actually run that event a few years in a row. So to pick that up, and obviously looked at their LinkedIn. I was really surprised. I was like, oh, that's actually a really good email because this is far more than what someone would have naturally done and the depth it had gone into. So I think, yes, just keeps getting better by the day.
Now, prospecting agent, you can send, I think, hundreds or 1,000.
Yes.
You can go out, you can create all these selling profiles. I think the use case that I've been chatting with a few clients lately is, because we're mainly with mid to large B2B businesses, they're mainly our clients, is when they promote a webinar. So usually what do you do? The marketing team creates a marketing email, promotes the webinar, goes out to everyone. Now they're like the sales rep will use prospecting agent to craft the webinar invite per contact. And so it just, it does it. And so it's a bit more personal.
Yeah.
But can you see the use case here? It's not really a prospecting agent. Well, it could be prospecting in the sense they might just be a contact with no relationship. But can you see the bleed over here from marketing? Those kind of marketing activities actually become sales activities.
Yes.
Promoting an upcoming webinar or an invite to something. So that's why I think it's better. We should call it engagement agent. I don't know if that's a very good name, but it feels more apt for it. However, here's the thing. So you're sending these emails. I think they're good emails. They're going out. But the thing I wonder about is, well, do they actually get any response? Are they actually effective? They're better emails, but are they effective? Well, you'll know. You'll be able to measure it. But I know personally, Ian, when I get those emails that are very tailored to me, I automatically go, oh, yeah, that's spam. And they're probably using some AI tool to send me emails that are personalized for me. And I think most people are going to be doing that kind of pattern matching in the future if they aren't already. So is prospecting agent great for creating those emails? Yes. But collectively in society, we're just starting to see that as a red flag. As soon as we see that, oh, it's personalized to me, I will ignore it or I'll assume it's AI. And the other thing that I'll say about this is, remember years ago, I'm going to go off on a tangent here, Ian. Remember years ago, we were looking at that service where it writes handwritten cards?
Yes.
And it was an automated process. And it was like, some machine was handwriting cards. And they were saying, oh, give the personal touch. It's a handwritten card. And we're like, yeah, but it's not. It's pretending to be a handwritten card.
Correct.
Like it kind of can't make this up. It's like, and I feel that a lot of what prospecting agent and these tools are getting at is trying to be more personalized, but it's not. It's actually not. It's just automated scale, at scale. And I feel the pushback against this. I'm like, what is the response rate on this? Is it actually effective? Sure, you can do it at scale and it's personalized, but I'm really keen to know in the coming years how effective, if at all, this remains.
Craig, I think because we work in this on a day-to-day basis, we recognize patterns, right? But I think when I talk to people and I listen to what they say, I feel that they don't recognize it.
Really?
And sometimes they are unaware. So I feel that, yes, there will be a lot of it. There will be let's call it hyper-personalization. But I think with anything, it's really interesting. Like you and me, we get a lot, right? And then there are some that just hit just are well-written. And I just go, oh, that's actually interesting. I might go check out their website and go, okay, well, I think I did that with one today. It was just different to everything else. And I think they had kind of got the right thing. Now, was it one of these automated outreaches? It could have been, but I don't know. I was thinking, yes, I think it is an automated outreach, but let me see what comes tomorrow or day after. And then I'll be able to tell. But I was able to spot, we was with a customer today and I was like, oh, is that a sequence email I can see in your inbox? And he was like, oh, yes, it is. And it just sounds the same, right? I think this is the big thing where people are going wrong. They're basically using templated responses or templated emails and just kind of changing one thing that applies to them. When you get a sea of these emails, you'll be like, oh, okay, I've seen this before. And you straight away switch off, right? So I think being personalized, being personalized, adding a little bit of you into the email, I think that's going to be the key in the whole thing.
Well, I do like that about the profiles, that you can set up the profile and you can tell the tone, you can give it additional instructions even, which I do quite like. One of the things because I'm not using Agent much myself in our portal, although our clients are. We're showing clients
Yes.
how to use it. I'm actually thinking of using it in my own portal to, well, maybe even highlight things about HubShots. But what I'm going to do is add an instruction that at the top of it, it says, this email was prepared by Prospecting Agent by AI,
Yeah.
almost as a point of interest about the email,
Yes.
because I don't want people to get fooled. And I kind of have a slight cringe or moment when if you send something automated and a person replies thinking it was really from you. I kind of feel there's something about it that irks me. So I would much rather on the email say, hey, this was created from AI by a prospecting agent, and I thought you might like it. We've tailored it for you. So it's almost part of the message to kind of build the relationship, if you like. Anyway, that's just me, but that's just a comment from the sidelines to keep in mind.
Now, a little tip here. If you've just started using this or if you plan on using it, I wouldn't be doing more than 10 enrollments every day as a way to test and measure, and then increase that. Now, you can send 1,000 a day, but that is not recommended. It is going from your inbox, so just be aware that it can ruin your sender reputation. Now, the system does have some spam safe pacing to stop this from happening. But I think with all of this stuff, I think use a small sample size and test. And I think even HubSpot mentions maximum of 10 enrollments a day when you're starting off, just to keep things in perspective and to get used to what's happening. And then in the show notes, you'll see about how to go set it up. There's lots of like HubSpot resources on how to set this up. It does take time. Like, this is not something where you turn up and you go, oh, I'm just going to flick the switch and get going. It does take time. And I think people forget that. I think, Craig, I don't know whether you've realized this, but people think, oh, AI can do all of that for me. No, it actually requires you to do some stuff before the AI does its stuff. So, and I think the key thing, like Craig highlighted here, was like set up specific selling profiles to control your agent's approach to different audiences, products, and sales streams.
That's right. When you set up the selling profiles, you can even say the audience it is for.
Yes.
So, we've got a client in manufacturing. It's like, oh, this selling profile is for this specific industry. This other profile is for another industry. Like, you can get that granular. I think it's really good. I think a really nice way
That's right. Now, you need to have Sales Hub Professional, and it does consume HubSpot credits. So this is where understanding your credits and having a plan about how you consume these credits is very important.
And that's totally fine. So we're not going to talk about credits much but compare this to some people just have teams of people sitting there writing outreach emails and, tailor it for this and personalize for that. And it's like, well, the credits more than pay for themselves.
That's right. All right. Onto our HubSpot AI meeting assistant, Craig. I think we've mentioned this before, but I think like for sales, this is a big thing, is to be prepared for a meeting. I know we can often end up in meetings and we're like back to back. And I think this is just part of that process to help you prepare. So, like contact history, activity, suggested talking points. Now, again, this is based on data that it has. And I look at this often and I think to myself, oh, is that right considering what I know about a customer? But it can only work on what it knows, right? So good notes always help. Logging activity helps. After the meeting, automatic transcription summary, doing the AI extract, creating tasks and follow-ups, and making sure that these are logged to the contact and deal record is a really important part.
I think that's a good one. Just a reminder, in the previous episode on AI, we talked about not so much this specific meeting tool, but how you can call from workflows to go and do company research. So the company research agent. So that use case then that we chatted about just briefly was, someone fills out a form, they request a demo, workflow kicks that off, researches the person, the prospect, the company, puts all those notes on the contact record, ready for the sales rep to be prepared to go into that meeting. I think the big thing here about the meeting tool, or the meeting note taker tool rather, is that automatic transcription and summarizing. And as you mentioned before, there's that deal progression thing now, which then gives you kind of action items after the meeting and can automatically turn them into, well, it can turn them into tasks, those kind of things. It's getting better. I think they've had some technical issues with this tool. It still is in beta.
Correct.
And we've got some clients where they've installed it all and the meeting note taker just doesn't join meetings.
Yes.
And I'm like, why? It works for us.
Yeah.
And then occasionally it just doesn't. Like, so I think it does have some technical things they're ironing out, especially if you're an Office 365 company, whereas Google tends to be, I haven't had as many problems with Google, I have to say. So yeah, it's still coming, but it's certainly, it's looking really good.
And then the next thing to add on to this is the in-person meeting note taker, that if you have HubSpot on your Apple device or iOS, well worth using to take notes. Now, this does record the meeting, but then you can't actually listen back to the meeting. It actually creates the notes out of that and puts the transcript, and then the recording gets deleted, I believe. So it actually does not store that anywhere. So just a good thing to remember, because I know sometimes when you're in-person meetings, people are like, oh, are you recording this? So,
well, I wonder how long they'll keep that. I can understand they're doing it for privacy reasons, but there's plenty of other tools that can do it. I think, is it Granola?
Well, that's exactly right.
I was using Granola the other day. I was testing that and things like it'll just listen and record and, so I think HubSpot's done the right thing here by being very privacy conscious on this kind of thing. But I wonder how long it'll last, because so many other tools just do it. I was chatting with a client the other day and they're saying, we don't want to record calls because then we have to let the client know.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, you do. Well, in Australia, you definitely have to let them know. And I was like, yeah, let them know, because I think you might be surprised that not many people push back on it now.
Yes.
A year or two ago, they're like, no, I don't want this recorded. But now they're kind of like, yeah. I think people are just they expect it's being recorded probably. So it's probably not the biggest hurdle or friction point it used to be.
Now, there are some things around smart deal progression, but there's more happening on that. So I'm going to leave that to another episode to talk about.
Hey, just one more comment on this, Ian. These tools, right? This meeting recorder that you just mentioned that's in the HubSpot app, or even the meeting note taker. Again, this is another example of what are actually whole separate businesses. There are products that you can buy that just solve this point, right? Yes. And that's their whole business model. And here you've got yet another example of HubSpot just going, oh, we're just adding that as a feature into the platform. And so I get that, well, sometimes the separate specific products are actually better, but overall, wrapping it all into HubSpot, it's like, well, you've just got one platform. People are sick of having so many different apps and tools and things for that. HubSpot often just takes the most important ones and just makes it part of the feature set for everyone.
And I think, Craig, the big thing is your data's all in one place, right? Your data's not scattered across multiple systems where there's
that as well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to quickly touch on target accounts and account-based selling. So prospecting tab in the sales workspace and setting up target accounts. It's really interesting. I think people go through this process and then they get to this. And I think if I was to say why people use this is that they want to see all the people that they're talking to in an organization and what the touch has been. And this brings it really nicely together to say how many touches have been had, what the next action is, like what have people been looking at. And so it's a nice way to bring it all together. And now with all of the insight signals and everything that's built into HubSpot, I think we're getting a greater level of insight and granularity into this. So there'll be more on this, but be aware that it's there. And again, you can go and buy an ABM tool and connect it to HubSpot and do this stuff. And they might be more advanced, but if you're just getting started, this is a great place to start and things to utilize. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is LinkedIn's CRM Sync. This is a two-way LinkedIn integration and had a major update since we spoke about this in 2022. I think they kind of had it, Craig, but it didn't kind of work. And then I think it's been resolved. But basically what it does now is you can log and monitor all LinkedIn interactions within HubSpot. You can sync contacts companies from LinkedIn into your CRM. You can use everything inside CRM for targeting your LinkedIn searches, and you can get lead recommendations based on closed deals and activity data. Now, here's the caveat. We have not used this, and I'll tell you why. And I don't have a customer that's using this. It requires 10 LinkedIn Sales Navigator Advanced Plus seats. So this is almost operating on what HubSpot used to operate. So none of our clients actually use it because you've got to have 10 plus seats, right? For it to connect and to use it. So we have not used it. But on the flip side of that, I'm going to tell you something else. We use HubLead for people that just want 1 to 10 licenses. And you'll see, I've got a screenshot in the notes. It has a nice integration into LinkedIn. It can pull the data from your HubSpot through that link. You can push the information. You can enrich it with the information that they have. You can even pull additional properties that you want to see or update. But it has been a tool that we've used with a couple of customers, and it's been really good. So this is an alternative to that LinkedIn connector between HubSpot and LinkedIn.
Can I just ask, with HubLead, which I've used as well, great tool, recommend it. Does that work with Sales Navigator as well, within the Sales Navigator interface, or just on the native LinkedIn?
Actually, that's a good question. I am not 100% sure, Craig. I'm pretty sure it would, but that's something I'll have to confirm.
Yeah.
But I think one of the big things here, like if I think about this whole part, is that we've been in meetings, Craig, you and me. Salespeople are like, oh, I've sent LinkedIn messages. I've been messaging this person. I've done this on LinkedIn. And you see nothing in HubSpot.
Yeah.
And I think this is what closes that gap of what's going on, because it shows you when you connected with the person, what messages went backwards and forwards, and you can use that as points of activity in your contact with that particular individual.
Yeah, definitely agree. HubLead, it'll sync the messages, but again, this is, I think, just the message when you're personally sending, not within Sales Navigator. So anyway, there are 2 options to look at. Just coming back to the HubSpot's own LinkedIn integration and requiring that 10 seats of Advanced Plus and that, which like you, I haven't used. I used to have Sales Navigator, just a single seat.
Yes.
But I never had this sync. I think it had problems years ago. I think it was a limitation on the LinkedIn side, actually. I don't think it was a HubSpot limitation.
Yes.
I think LinkedIn was controlling that or blocking that. But for people at bigger enterprises, 10 plus seats at Advanced Plus is not a big problem. This is not a problem. And although you and I probably, our eyes water at the cost of LinkedIn Sales Navigator and Advanced Plus, these same businesses are happily spending, because we've had clients where they're spending, oh no, we've got Sales Navigator, no problem, everyone's got that on the team. Oh, plus we use Zoom Info, that costs us 70 grand a year. And I'm like, what? What is going on? So it's another world sometimes. So this will be a fit for many businesses.
All right. If you're listening to this episode, I've got a little tale about what has changed between 271 and now, and how the lazy salesperson's features have evolved into the AI approach, into the smart salespersons. So things like meetings, right? We used to think about, we could let people use our calendar to book online. Now in 2026, we've got, meeting briefs, we've got meeting insights from calls that have been recorded, we've got post-meeting summaries, which is all new and obviously needs to be recorded to make that happen. Used to manually manage tasks. Now you've got a lot of guided actions and prioritization to automatically do things. You've got tasks automatically being added into a contact record or into a deal, which has happened from a meeting that might have taken place. So that's another really big step. You've got shared queues for teams. So these are the task queues. Now that's all built into the sales workspace as well. Here's a big one. We had revisit notifications. So you get an email when a contact returns. Now you've got that along with intent signals and auto tracking rules. So I think there's some massive, massive improvements there. Templates, again, pre-written before. Now we can use some AI generated personalization and some, what is the other sequence we've got, Craig, now? It's not, I've forgotten the name of it. The new type of sequence. Adaptive sequence, is it?
Is it, or dynamic sequences?
Dynamic sequence. That's right. So we've got dynamic sequences now as well. Now we've got sequences where you had to manually enroll and auto follow up. Now you can use a prospecting agent to do some of that enrollment and outreach and be hyper personalized with the emails based on the data it can get from different sources. Reporting and dashboards, we had that before. Now we've got obviously lots of predictive scoring and deal risk calculations and goal progression. So those are some of the new things that have come in. In prospecting, it was very manual. Research and outreach, it's relied heavily on the person doing that. Now we have prospecting agent that can actually do the research, get data agent to get data and update the records, and then even just sending you the emails. Now this is fully automated. This is where we said don't do that just yet, but that is what the ability it has to do it. And then finally, quotes. We had manual quote creation. Now they're moving towards the AI CPQ models and conversation based, along with closing agent. Now we haven't tried any of that, but this is what's the big shift between now and then. So just be aware. I think if there's anything you can take away from this episode is be aware of what is there and what you could potentially use, and just do one thing. That's my takeaway. Take one thing out of this episode and implement it. I think you'll be a massive step ahead. Craig, what are some implementation tips for teams if they're getting started?
I think this is such a good list of bullets you've put here. So train Breeze first, or train your tools first. So prospecting agent, and in fact buyer intent tool, which we chatted about last episode, things like that. You set up, you configure it all. Breeze, brand, voice and everything like that, personas, value propositions, all that kind of stuff. When it comes to prospecting agent in particular, just start small. You even said this, only enroll 10 people at most in a day just to try it. Don't go fully autonomous. Don't let it go automatically, because we need to get confidence in what it's providing. You can create multiple selling profiles, and we talked about that earlier. So just start with one. Don't assume that you're just going to have one selling profile for prospecting agent that's going to meet everyone's needs. Create them. You can monitor your credit usage. I think that's important, but in particular, make sure that it stops when you hit your limit. Otherwise, especially when you're getting started, otherwise you can suddenly rack up a big bill. And your number one tip, I think, was make Sales Workspace your home screen for reps. That's where you start. They're like, hey, where do I see everything that relates to me? Sales Workspace.
Now, I did have a pro tip here. People, when they're getting started and they're doing the whole ICP persona thing, they get stuck. And we have so much data inside HubSpot, right? If you've been using HubSpot well. And one of the tips is to use the assistant to review your best clients and then ask it to create the ICPs and the personas, and then see whether that matches. Now, I'll put screenshots in the show notes where I just kind of said, because I've set some of this up in our portal, and I said, oh, just tell me. And so it said, oh, based off your ICP, right? So this took what I had put in. I then said to it, can you please verify this against all of the data that you have in HubSpot about our clients, right? So I wanted to check that what I had said and what is in the system are marrying up or are kind of aligned. And I think this is a really good thing. Often people come to us or work with us and they say, hey, I want to just because their business evolves. So they'll say, I want to know who my best, let's say I know off the top of my hands, because they're not selling copious amounts of stuff. They know the 10 best clients, right? Okay, out of these 10 best clients, what are their common attributes? What are they from? Do they live in a particular area? Are they in a part of a particular profession? Do they earn a certain amount of money? What are they buying, or what are their pain points for these buyers versus the ones that we used to deal with? I think these are all really good questions to ask and be really getting the AI to delve into, given the amount of information you would have within HubSpot for those particular customers. And I think you'll be really surprised at some of the things that you can figure out. And one of the things we did, Craig, recently was somebody said, that's right. They had a customer really quick from like a sales cycle that could take 9 months to a year. This person converted, I think within like 3 or 4 weeks, like from lead inquiry. Oh, there's a deal happening. They've signed it and they've paid money. And they were like,
Wow.
oh, hang on, what's going on here? So I actually asked the assistant to tell me for that particular contact, what was the journey? Why did they think? It actually gave some really good insight, into the different touch points, like they had interacted with ads, they had downloaded particular things, they had spoken this many times to somebody in the business, and there was all really good insights because you could troll the timeline, but you just don't see the same thing. And so I think like using the assistant to query some of these things, ask it questions, create a story. And what ended up doing was I asked the assistant to create a story around it that we could put in a board report, and it actually did it. And so it was really good. And so we just took
Wow.
that. It was 80% there, and I gave it to our customer and I said, look, take that, flesh it out, use it, and put it in the board report as a good news story. So it worked really well.
That's really good. And I actually want to pick up something there in terms of your activity there, Ian. And I think this is so important because actually one of the things I learned from you is how you chip away at stuff with clients. So that's actually a really good example. You did that. And the behavior I often see with teams of reps, or even in myself at times, it's like, oh, I want to get tons of things done at once with AI. How do I use AI to do tons of things? And it's like, well, you'll do tons of things badly. Whereas what you're highlighting is, you go case by case, you do this and you pick that out. Oh, that's a great learning. Oh, and then you do this and then you do. And so that's the hard work. That's what the smart sales reps do. They'll do this. Oh yeah, and I worked this out. And then I worked out how to use this tool. And it took me a bit of time at first, but then I added that to my learning. And incrementally over the year, I am far above. And that's where the great divide happens between the teams. They're like, the beginner teams are trying to scratch around getting AI to do 100 different things for them automatically when there's no data to do it. The smart people are very selectively saying, I want to do this little bit here and this little bit here, and then I improve. And Assistant is a good way to start. So you just gave one example of using Assistant to do it. And by the way, there's multiple assistants.
Yeah.
So this is where you go at the top right in HubSpot and you use the assistant. The other thing I wanted to highlight with the assistant is, you know what the smart sales reps they're doing? They're just asking the assistant how to do stuff.
Yes.
And we'll often do training courses with teams and teams of reps, and they'll come along and they'll say, oh, we've got a whole list of questions to ask you. And I'm like, oh, great, fire away. And then every second or third question, I'll go, oh, I'm not sure. Here, look, I'll just type it into the assistant. Oh, there's the answer. So I'll give you a classic one the other day. Here's such an obscure example here. They're like, I'm on a deal. I'm creating a note. It's only linking that note to the company and the deal. Why doesn't it link it to the contact? And I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure you can set the default for that somewhere. Go to the assistant. Oh, how do I make it? And of course it tells me, you go to the settings, you go to activities, and then you can choose the deal and you can choose what the defaults are, right? Assistant tells me that. And remember before we'd have to go, oh, I'll have to Google it, or I'll have to try and find it, or maybe you had to know it. And this is the thing. So often my training courses now with reps are just training them to use the assistant so they don't need more training sessions with me. It's like, just come to me with the more strategic or high level process questions and all these bits. The assistant is your friend. And AI it's getting really good, because even a year ago, the assistant would give you this half-baked rubbish, kind of what it thought you wanted to hear. Now it's really good. So that's almost, I think, the number 2 takeaway. Number 1, Sales Workspace, make that your home. Number 2, use the assistants more.
Yeah, absolutely right, Craig. We should have actually spent more time on the assistant.
Probably should, yeah.
All right. And then if you're a B2B, and I want to highlight this for B2B clients because we do work with people that are in the B2C market. So this doesn't work. And in the B2B side, target accounts, again, larger businesses, the prospecting agent researching companies, that is really good. Now, if you're selling B2C, that's not going to work. But B2B, yes, that's a great way to start. And then also the the layering of intent signals to help identify when companies are actively evaluating solutions and looking for things is a really good addition in there. And if you're probably thinking, where does all of this come from? This came from an acquisition of, what is it, Craig?
Not Clearbit. The
Clearbit, yeah, Clearbit.
Was it the intent signals? That was Clearbit as well, was it?
So there was Clearbit, and there is another acquisition that has rolled in, which was actually giving the intent signals. So it's a couple of acquisitions that HubSpot have done over the last couple of years that have now been fully integrated. That is giving us this data because people, this is a common question. People are like, how do they know this? And what they have done really well is they've acquired businesses that did this really well, and they have also integrated it really well into HubSpot, giving us the ability to get these signals.
You know what? Future looking, and there's a big part missing in HubSpot, which is getting buying data. So currently you still have to go to ZoomInfo or Apollo or any of those data aggregators.
Yes.
And you can buy contacts. Essentially, you're saying, "Oh, give me this list of contacts. I can work them," and you pay for that. HubSpot doesn't let you do that yet. They've got their 200 million contacts and companies. They've got that data in the background, but you can't buy it. You can't kind of say, "Hey, give me these ones." It'll only enrich based on the contacts you already have in your portal. And so I'm waiting. I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure there's a whole lot of privacy stuff they've got to work out, but I'm sure it's coming. And the day that they unlock that and they say, "Hey, you've got 1,000 contacts in your portal. Would you like to not enrich in terms of enrich those contacts? Would you like to import another 10,000 contacts that match all the ICP and the characteristics, basically a lookalike audience of everything you've got already? Would you like to buy that from HubSpot? Because you buy credits. It'll be a consumption model." That will be quite a fun day, I think, Ian, I'm assuming that's coming. I have no inside knowledge, by the way, but I'm assuming that's coming, that data play, providing that. And then HubSpot, it's like it is the all-in-one at that point, isn't it?
All right. We do have some resources. We've got a quote actually from a former VP of product and GM of Sales Hub at HubSpot who I have met in San Francisco. He was a lovely guy. And one of the things he said was sales teams operate in two modes: building an understanding of their customer and engaging with them. They all want to spend more time engaging, but get bogged down in doing research and admin. So they built the sales workspace to make the research process more productive and offer guided actions. This way, reps can spend more time building relationships and less time summarizing them. So I think everything here is moving towards being more effective and making sure that the time spent is actually valuable to the team, to the people that they're interacting with, and cutting out the admin. I think that's the big thing. So well done to Michael. And I put a link to his LinkedIn in there as well. And then we've got a couple of actions. I think this has been a bit of a monster, Craig. So again, if you're listening to this, I want you to do one thing. Take one thing away from this episode. Subscribe to the daily HubShots email if you haven't done that, because you will get a daily tip that Craig, we often have discussions and Craig puts it in. He does the hard work of sending it. If you've got any suggestions, just connect with us or reply to the email. We will get it. Connect with Craig and myself on LinkedIn. We love connecting with listeners. So take those three things away and we would love to hear from you. Well, Craig, until next time.
Catch you later, Ian.